2000 Toyota Tundra Limited. I, too, am a man of culture.
Like Taiji Ishimori, I'm a bone soldier. Gonna wig you like espresso shot in cold Folgers. Get road closures when the snow's over. But like Roman Reigns, the Tundra's gonna go over.
Who makes the truck that picks up your replacement Ford IDI engine? Who makes the truck that is still worth $3,000 after 200,000 miles, with new rust creeping out from behind aftermarket wheel flares meant to hide the old rust? Who makes the truck that gets you no man points, even when it's pulling someone's two-wheel drive C10 out of the mud? Toyota, of course. Toyota is dry grilled chicken breast, quinoa, and steamed broccoli. The truck meal that everybody knows they should be eating, but no one ever does. Why have a sensible, general-purpose, well-built truck when you could have a literal cow pie sautéed in old piss? Old piss. Old piss. Old piss. Old piss. My dick smells like Newark. The first generation Toyota Tundra had the 2UZ FE, which is the second version of Toyota's godly UZ line of 90-degree double-cam V8s, which blessed the planet's road from 1989 to 2013. They're fuel efficient for a V8, tunable up to 500 horsepower, and overbuilt. In the first year of the first-gen Tundra, which is what this is, the 2UZ was making 240 horsepower at 4,800 RPM and 315 pound-feet of torque. By the final year, 2006, the 2UZ was tuned for 271 horsepower. The 2UZ had a tough job replacing the dated but heroic 4-liter 1UZ, an engine still loved today, partly due to its beautiful cast aluminum intake manifold, which everybody loves to polish and show off. The 2UZ has more displacement at 4.7 liters, but it's just an engine, not an art piece. Although you could get an aftermarket TRD supercharger, which had the potential to boost the 2UZ to the engine's limit of 500 horsepower if you dare. After that, the connecting rods bend, or so says the forums of tundrasolutions.com. But the 2UZ still lived up to the 1UZ's reliability. The first-gen Tundra drives like a second-gen RAV4. It's hard, bouncy, but not wobbly. You can drive at sedan speeds on back roads. The roofline is a bit low, and the center console is a bit too far back. The Tundra is instantly familiar when you drive it. It's liminal space. I never drove a V8 Tundra before, and not one with the cool rear suicide doors. But everything was logical, and all the controls fell instantly to hand. There were no menus to navigate or hidden features. The Toyota Tundra looks like a foreigner's idea of what an American truck enthusiast would like, which makes sense because it was the first full-size pickup truck built by a Japanese auto company in North America. It's F-150 adjacent, with decent size and enough power to mount the highways like an AVN award winner. And these are facts not lost on Ford's lawyers at the time, because the Tundra even looks like a late 90s, early 2000s F-150, but it's just different enough. It was derivative of all those Ford pickups that crested mountains and all those commercials that aired between Steve Austin getting arrested at the beginning of Monday Night Raw and Steve Austin breaking out of jail to beat Vince McMahon's ass at the end of Monday Night Raw. Hell, for a Japanese truck, this is about as American as they come, and not just because of the seatbelt extender. From what we could find, the Tundra began production at Toyota's Indiana plant in May 1999, before being moved to the San Antonio plant in 2008. And it's still the only full-size truck made entirely in Texas, according to the Toyota press release anyway. And it's a truck that spent the better part of 2 decades building a reputation for being harder to kill than Big Boss. You had that one publicity stunt where a Tundra hauled the Space Shuttle Endeavour from LAX to the California Science Center. And then there was Victor Shepard, a guy whose Tundra lasted him over 1 million miles thanks to little more than regular maintenance. It's amazing how a truck can just keep going past the point where even the manufacturer wants to take it apart to figure out how they did it. Now, this Tundra is a good ways from 1 million miles. It currently sits at 225,000. And Ben is at the fix-it-when-it-breaks point because it doesn't make all that much sense to dip into his savings for a 2000 Toyota Tundra. It's not in the worst condition when you consider its age and how frequently Ben uses it for practical reasons like mulch, lumber, basic truck reasons. But the issue here is that Ben's Tundra, the valve cover gaskets on the passenger side will occasionally weep oil, and they're right over the exhaust manifolds, so the oil eventually will drip down and start burning. So you are losing oil, but only about a Dixie cup worth between oil changes. But you do see smoke wisping out from under the hood when you run it for a while and then park it. People are like, "Oh, your truck's on fire!" And Ben's like, "Nah, they just do that." I guess it comes down to whether or not you think an $800 fix to replace the valve cover gasket is worth it. If this were anything else, it'd be a $1,000 truck maybe, but it's got Toyota tax. So this is like a $3,000 truck. And if this thing were in really good condition, a cursory check of Carfax shows a good condition Tundra from the 2000s go for as much as $9,000, which I can understand. Plus, this one also had the frame recall from 2013. The Toyota Tundra is the type of truck that people who don't really care about the cult of truck will tell you to get. It's the one that Car Wizard tells you to get because it's not all that flashy or exciting, but it does the job and does it very well. You notice it says TRD on the back of this truck, but it's not really a TRD Tundra. This predates when Toyota figured out that they could use TRD as a complete image that we see now. But the car community isn't that far off from any other community in the way people rebel against recommendations. I mean, how many times do people ask us, what sort of car should I get? And the answer always begins with, Toyota Corolla! And they don't take the advice. They get a Chevy Cruze, or a Hyundai Santa Fe, or a Nissan Maxima, or that Autobox Focus. And then they wonder why their transmission just turned into a tennis ball tube filled with Connects. It's like television. The more people tell you to watch something, the more you want to avoid it out of principle. Yeah, it's probably great, but everyone else is already watching it and making their inside jokes. I say let them keep those inside jokes. Ideally, people shouldn't understand every reference they come across. And there are secrets in the Big Britain. Good luck with that one. Because we shouldn't want the things we like to become the totality of who we are. It feels like humanity is split in half between people who watch The Office and people who rag on people for watching The Office. And the truck community has the same duality. A Tundra is for someone who keeps his opinion to himself, while a Cummins is for someone who spends a significant amount of time trying to pass on the infection of his mind. But the most remarkable thing about the first-gen V8 Tundra is the lack of body cab dissonance. This is something I've experienced with nearly every full-size truck. You can feel the physics change as you move over a bump. The cab of the truck will move in one direction and the bed of the truck will move in a different direction. Then they'll straighten themselves out. This dissonance lasts for less than a second. But your butt feels it, your hand feels it, and your inner ear feels it. Because, of course, the cab and the bed are two separate things, connected through the ladder chassis. The only other truck that didn't exhibit body cab dissonance is the new Ford Ranger. I was expecting to feel this with a Tundra because it's not a unibody truck, it's a frame like everything else. But as I went over bumps and I was on the back road, the body and bed moved together. If you've never felt this dissonance, what I'm talking about, imagine, have you ever driven bumper boats? It's the slightly trashier version of bumper cars. I think they still have them up at Montage Mountain. It's literally a gigantic inner tube with a seat and a troller motor, and you go around in like a big above-ground pool and just bounce into each other. For every person who loves a certain brand of truck, there's a person who's part of a Facebook group dedicated to memes about that brand of truck breaking down. Except, of course, for Toyota. For every person who doesn't take pictures because they rather live in the moment, there's a person who documents everything off the chance that they'll forget what those moments were like. For every guy who's looking for a reason to not go home to his wife, there's another guy who's been waiting his entire life to have someone to call the old ball and chain. 2000 Toyota Tundra. God, a Cummins is a piece of crap.
In every old truck. Knows every old truck is like brand new to somebody